Folks, again, welcome to another webinar here by Sunbelt Business Advisors here in the greater Bay Area of Silicon Valley. Today's today's webinar topic is choosing a franchise in regards to ability and alignment. That's hosted today by our franchise specialist at our office, Brian Bacher. And I'm JC Meyer, I'm the operations manager for the office, and Helen Liu is present with us here today as well, our president and broker of record. And with that, I will turn it over to Helen.
Thank you, JC. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on choosing a franchise. So our Sunbelt Greater Bay Area office is dedicated to providing a full brokerage service to business investors, large and small. And as you all know, Sunbelt is the largest business brokerage in the world, and with 3 billion active listings at any given time. And also we have the largest buyer database. So with that experience, we understand when to buy and how to buy a franchise business is often a confusing decision. So today, we'll bring in our franchise expert, Brian Bacher, to give us more details on how to choose a franchise business. So without further ado, let's welcome Brian.
Thank you for joining us today. Just a little background on who I am. I've been an entrepreneur and kind of I was a business owner my whole life. I knew what I wanted to do since I was like 14 years old. I went straight into culinary school. As soon as high school was done, culinary school. And from there, I spent 27 years in the retail food industry, with a sense of training overseas, stuff like that. Ultimately, towards the height of the career, the peak, I had 3 bakeries and cafes, all running simultaneously, 50 employees, multi-million-dollar operation. And it was humming. It was a very large operation for a guy to run, tiered management, the whole 9 yards. So in this world, I've got a great amount of experience as an owner operator and things like that. From there, because being on a bench tears your body up after a while. It's like, okay, I need to do something a little simpler, a little more time for my family. So I phased into being a broker because I figured I could leverage my knowledge as an entrepreneur and as an owner in this industry, because I'm dealing with owners, buyers, and sellers, and I've been on both sides of that, and I know what those people are going through because I've been there firsthand. Right, and as a side note, which also helps in business, as I'm a high performance coach and even a big sport fancy. So I can see the next slide. So we're talking about choosing a franchise, but we're talking more importantly about your ability to align with that franchise. And so we're going to talk about the franchise side, and we're going to talk about aligning to it, which is one of the more foremost steps that you're going to be doing when looking at franchises. Now, a pro for buying a franchise, right? People buy it because their failure rate's lower than starting your own business by a considerable amount. You're doing this because the franchise has a proven system. They have plans in place. They've got marketing in place. They've got support, front of the house, back of the house, all the things that a lot of people who want to be a business owner, they might have a strength in some areas, but not all of them. It's most of the time, business owners don't have a whole encompassing component of strengths, right? They usually have to hire someone or whatever. So they'll look at franchises because it's a reasonable answer. It's a proven system. It's still relatively new. Franchises didn't really come on board until 1950s, right? And since then, it's become quite a large industry. From a banking side of it, if you're doing for an SBA loan, which is typical to buy these things, they like them because there's less risk involved, because they know there's a system in place and they're more likely to approve those loans. Okay. Then the key thing is, and I know it's cliche, but it's true, right? Is that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And we've all heard that, but if you look at the support structure within franchises, you're looking for that relationship with your district manager, with the people at the corporate office, with the people in finance, with people who are servicing you in product movement. All those are built-in relationships, and that they're ready for you to step into. So you're looking for support in that area, which helps deal with that success as you're going forward, that you're not doing it all alone. Next slide.
Okay.
Right. So part of this focus, we're really looking at the full scope of what you do to choose a franchise, but I want to high level these components because they're important, right? You don't want to look at just the numbers of the franchise that you're looking at for to buy, right? It's not just, here are our sales and we've got this great bottom line, all these things. It's like, look at the ratios against their projected sales and what their actual units are seeing. That's going to tell you a story. You can see, oh, this franchise makes $1 million a year and labor's, I don't know, $300,000. Okay, well, that doesn't seem like a big number. You can go, oh, there's still 700 there, but really that's 30% labor. Depending on the business, that actually might be high. So you want to look at what the ratios tell you to see what the real story is, because the numbers only are the numbers. The ratios in relationship to the sales gives you a better story, right? And then you measure it against other like franchises in the industry and see what their ratios look like, right? You want to go into a sector that you're actually attracted to. Don't go to it just because it makes a lot of money, right? That's just the pro tip.
A quick question to your point about ratios. You would also apply that to what, franchise fees as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll hit on that point a little bit further down in here, I believe. But you're going to be looking at how much the franchise is costing me. They've got support. Take Roundtable, for example, right? They've got support, but they also have advertising. You break it up. It's 4% each, right? Is the support, I mean, you getting your money's worth in that support? For the advertising, I'd say, yeah, that's definitely a 4% advertising budget. That's huge. But with that company, they also do a lot of coupons. So you want to be going, well, how many coupons? Because that actually comes out of your cash flow. How much money is there? What's that percentage? What's that percentage against other roundtables, right? If you're in a little less economic strength neighborhood, your coupon percentage redeemed is going to be higher than you would say in a higher economic neighborhood, right? Or vice versa. So you want to be looking at those pieces that aren't necessarily direct costs, but affect your bottom line. Does that kind of answer your question, JC? Okay. And that kind of addresses, to a minor extent, the fees charged, so they match what service you're getting. That is a little subjective, but you'll have a feel for it. It's like, oh, we have national advertising. Their stuff shows up on all the main channels, all right, at every commercial break all day long, all right, and it's costing me 2%. That's a really good advertising program. Or it could be like, oh, our advertising is 10%, and we do one billboard in Nebraska. Okay, that's crazy, right? And I think kind of where we're going at with that one. You have an idea, at least how to approach that, right? You want to dig for information, right? And you want to find all of it as best as you can without going into analysis paralysis, meaning I just get so in depth of digging that I actually never move, right? The people who are selling the franchise know to recognize this, right? You won't get as much of their time as you need, but you want to ask smart questions. You want to dig, you want to find the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yes, that's a movie title, but you're looking for it. You want to know the good side, the downside. You want to know what you're getting into. You want to know what you're putting your money into. You want to know especially what you're putting your time into. So you want the whole picture. All right.
So, Brian, I have a quick question. I don't know if I'm asking the question too early, but would you say for the first-time business owner, it's better they choose a franchise business because, there's more support to the first-time business owner?
It depends on the individual, and that's part of what this talk is about, right? Because if you are, excuse me, if you're kind of like I am quite an independent thinker. I have my ideas. I'm very strong in supporting my ideas, and I've put the background in to make those ideas work, right? So for me, a franchise probably isn't the best idea, just because they have systems, and for consistency purposes, they need their systems followed. Me, I'm going to look at it and go, how can I make this better? And I'm going to go that direction. I'm not a good candidate for a franchise, right? But I recognize this, right? So when I bought my bakeries, they were all independents, right? And I could exercise my freedoms a little bit. And that's kind of where we're going with this whole talk, is like identifying in yourself what is a better direction, right? If you don't have a lot of strengths, but you have a desire to be a business owner, a franchise is a good way to go. Less risk, more support, right? And a lot of people, I won't go far into it, but because this is a whole nother talk, and there have been many books written on this, especially by Michael Gerber, right? We talk about the EMyth, right? I was that book, right? I was a really good technical baker, great technician. Man, I could breads, cakes, pastries, you name it. I could do it at a very high level, competitive level. And I'm like, I could do this better than the guy I'm working for and keep the money. And that's what I did. But I put a plan together to make that happen. And I spent 5 years preparing myself to make that jump, right? Some people don't, they just want to, hey, I want a business. I just got, money from stocks, or I want to have something where, my family can be involved, right? A franchise is a better way to go, right?
And
so it really does depend on the individual.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think the rest of the presentation is going to help formulate the answer to each individual, because like Brian's saying, it's in his world that the franchise didn't really work, but it depends on really ability and alignment, which is the topic of the webinar. So great question, Helen. I think we're going to answer that in great detail here.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an important piece, I find, right? So when we're going to go a little more into the due diligence of choosing your franchise, talk to people, talk to other owners, past, present, other people looking at the business, get their feel for it, get their likes, their dislikes. I have found, and this is one of the reasons I'm attracted to the business that we're in now, being business brokers. Business owners are awesome, right? They're great people to talk to. Get them to open up, and they're all excited to talk about their business. The good, the bad, the ugly. They'll tell you. They won't hold back. They're just like us. They've got only an amount of time, right? But they've got a willingness to serve and help people. And that's one of the big draws we all have as business owners, whether we're independents or franchise. So go out there and talk to them. Make appointments. Hey, you got 15 minutes? I'll buy you a cup of coffee. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Big, right? And you just created an ally. If you do go into that franchise, you got somebody you can go and talk to outside of your franchise rep and your district manager, right? Which is a strength of, I'll pump round table again. That's a big strength for them, right? Those owners are family. They go on vacation together. They support each other in a huge way, like I don't see in other franchises. It's a nice system. And if you didn't know, it was started right here in Menlo Park. But anyways, so yeah, talk to past, present, other people who are looking at the business, get their take. What do they see, right? And take it with a grain of salt. Look at it, study it, right? But go, okay, that's your point of view. Where's that point of view coming, right? Don't take it for the gospel. Now, when looking at the different franchises you're interested in, I can tell you, be wary of too much gloss. The guy that's going, man, this thing's fantastic and it makes tens of billions of dollars and you can keep all of it and blah, the more gloss there is, just like we're writing here, probably need to do more digging to see what's really going on. Just like with a car, man, that's got a high ceramic finish on it. That looks beautiful. Where's the rust? Because I know it's 50 years old. There's got to be some in there somewhere, even if it's a garage California car, right? I need to go look to see where it is, right? Recommended highly.
That's because the franchise people that you're talking to, that's their job, right? It's to sell franchises. So, it's in their benefit, and Unfortunately, in some cases, not all, sure, but it's in their benefit to highlight the positive, not necessarily the negative. So, that
Yeah.
responsibility in the end ultimately falls in their hands.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, JC. Some of these guys, they're in their job to sell franchise. So of course they're going to make it look good. All right. So now we're getting into the ability, your ability as the buyer and aligning to the franchise. And this is where we want to spend a little bit more time, because this is where I feel it's most important. And this works if you're going to go as an independent as well, right? I want to go back to an analogy I was talking about earlier at the set of this, just to put your mind in frame of what we're looking at here as we go into more detail. I find a franchise is making a great amount of money, right? Its field is in bill collecting. But for my personal ability, I don't have conflict. That's going to be a rough ride, right? Because bill collecting is nothing but conflict, right? No matter how much money it makes and how great it looks, if you're not aligned with it, you're going to be miserable. And that's what we're really going to be looking at these next couple of slides, right? So you want to have your ability that you're going to find in alignment with the franchise's wants and needs. That's where you're going to find success. So to reframe things, you could have a great franchise. You could have a great franchise, right? But if your abilities are not aligned with that franchise, it's probably not going to work, or it's not going to work to your expectations or the franchisor's expectations, and you're both going to be miserable, and it probably will fail, right? It's just, we got to look at the reality of this. If I've identified my abilities and then I find a franchise that I align well with and they align well with me, you're probably going to have great success. Now, no, it might not be the franchise you first looked at. It might not even been one that's on your radar, right? So you want to be kind of open-minded as you're going through this, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to make your money back, and you want to grow, and you want to be happy with what you're doing, because you're going to be spending some time in there. This isn't come in like, I'm going to work my 10 hours a week and go home and make tons of money. You're going to work. You want to keep your eyes on that nest egg because it's yours, right? So finding that ability and aligning it to that franchise, that's where we're looking. That's the one point out of hundreds of points we could go through. But it's probably one of the most important ones, and I would have to say most neglected. Most people don't take the time to look at this. So let's get a little bit deeper in detail. Now the question, right? How do you find your ability? Okay, great question. There are a lot of ways of going about this, a lot of methodologies. We can't go into all those pieces because we can take a long time to do it, right? But in general, you're looking at, you got to get a mirror, and I'm going to look at myself. And you're going to be honest. It's like, okay, what are my likes and dislikes? What are my work habits really? I want to think, I'm a hard worker. I do 60 hours a week. In reality, you're doing about 30, right? Be honest, right? If you're not honest, the only person you're going to hurt is yourself, right? What's my social style? Am I outgoing? Am I service-based? Am I a number cruncher, right? Am I a leader? What are you? There's tons of material out there to figure that out, right? How is my level of attention and focus? Am I a sprinter? Am I a marathon runner? What's my ability there, right? How are my leadership skills? Can I help pull people, or do I have to push, right? And yeah, there's the other side of that coin. They have a piece in it, but it's your abilities you're looking at right now, right? Can you change with the changing priorities, right? Because sometimes they change on a dime, and you gotta punt. Yeah, I was doing this, but now I gotta do that, right? How good are you with that? How happy are you doing that? Can you roll with those punches? As a business owner, things change, right? There are a few constants in the world, and change is one of them, right? And in business, that is absolutely true, right? Change happens all the time. You need to be ready for it. How is your ability and mentality to be able to deal with that? Can you bounce back from them well? Or do you sit and fume about it for a couple of days? You really want to dig. Take a couple of days to do this. Find someone to talk to, read a book, watch a webinar, Like again, there's lots of ways to go about it. If you go to, there's a company who does similar business to what we do, but they're focused on franchises, called Franchise City. They actually have a test you can take, right? They have a multi-step test to kind of figure out what your abilities are. And then they can they know what franchisers are looking for and they can dovetail them, right? So that's like a cross-lateral promotion, but they have that available, right? The important thing is not to skip this step.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I'm.
Go ahead, Helen. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
Well, I was going to say it's interesting because one of the number one reasons people sell their business when they come to us is burnout. And it's interesting because by doing this, what you're really anticipating is the burnout, right? So if you're not happy in your business, you're going to burn out. The problem is you're at least in this for 3 years if you decide that you want to go start a business or a franchise, because you're not going to be able to sell the business without 3 years of financials. So you've got to be in it for at least 3 years. So it's really important, I think, as you're talking, you're starting to understand this is extremely important for success because, again, the number one reason, or one of the number one reasons people sell their business is burnout, and that is something people don't realize. All kinds of reasons can come to mind, but burnout is definitely one of them. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
It's a point on franchises. Can I add this in real quick, Helen, and then I'll ask you your question.
Sure.
With a franchise, so if you're an independent business owner, it's your books. If you're franchise has all books. So you might pick up an existing franchise and run it for 17, 18 months, and then go, this isn't working out for me, right? At least the franchisor has all those, they have those 3 years plus of information. Yeah, you as a business owner have it. They also have it. So from our standpoint, if we need to sell that business, the franchisor still has the records and we can still build a case for this is what this business is, this is their trends, this is when the new owner took over, it wasn't a good match, and so it affected X, Y, and Z. And so we can still kind of build that model out. Usually you have to get a release from the current owner or the franchisor to release that information. But that's easy, especially if they run out, they'll do that, right? But again, if you're an independent, you only have the 16 months worth of records, that's it. And we'll have to tell you, it's we can't do it on projections, it's gonna be hard to finance. There's more against you going that direction, right? But that's why that's a plus that comes with franchises. You have the records in case we need it. What was your question, Helen?
Probably it's more like a comment. I was just thinking, Sunbelt is a franchise, as everybody knows, and another well-known franchise is McDonald's. But Sunbelt is quite different from McDonald's. I think McDonald's probably you get a lot of direction from the top. They're going to change the menu, right? You probably have to follow the franchisor to change the menu constantly to match their marketing campaign. But I think Sunbelt is more leave it open for the owner, for the franchisee to make that decision. Like for us, we have the platform supported by Sunbelt, but we have a lot of flexibility on how we want to run our local business. So I was just thinking the two differences between us and McDonald's. Yeah.
That's
so
really good
then you can decide. Are you more like a self-sufficient, business owner? You can make the decisions on your own, or you want to follow the order, from somebody else, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Really good point. Thank you. Because this platform does have that nice flexibility goes with it. So if you're between those 2 points, you want some flexibility on your own, but you want the support, this kind of format's really good. Yeah. Are there any other questions about this one point?
No, but
talking about?
I did find it interesting. So if you buy a currently existing franchise from a franchise owner currently running one, is actually less risk, right? Because you have, the franchise has those back finances in case, a year down the road, say this isn't working, but there's still financial history there. So, and the franchise, as long as you're running it by the franchise's rules, operations are the same. That makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
Yeah, and a lot of times, if you're saying, okay, I want a new franchise, you go where they put you. You say, oh, in general, I want to be in Northern California. And they're like, okay, yeah, there's a space open in Chico. You like that? Okay, that's yours, right? And if you buy an existing franchise, though, it's at least you've gone through the TI. It's now hopefully been there long enough that people know about its location, because we know location is really key. We know in real estate, location, the first three most important things. Definitely with the business, the same thing. In a franchise, yes, where it's availability, where it's going to be, it's established, people know to go there, right? And then you make things work from there. A little known fact about franchises: after 20 years here in the state of California, you can terminate the contract and make it your own. So we had a Martinizing cleaners that had been at some location for 19 and a half years, and they're like, oh, we want to sell. All right, okay. And we talked to them, and they're just like, well, we just found out that we could make it ours and get out of our contract at the end of the year legally, right? We went and looked it up, and like, yeah, you can do that. So that's a very small, little known thing here. And so that place is no longer Martinizing. It's their own shop now, but they've been in the location for 20 years. So everyone knows to go there. I only knew about it because I was going there. And I said, hey, if you ever thought about this, here's my card. And they're like, well, as a matter of fact, yeah. And we went from there. But then we turned it around. So that's just a little known fact that most people don't recognize.
Okay.
Right? Because franchisors don't want you to know about that.
All the more important too.
They don't get paid anymore. Right?
More important to build that reputation with your clients during that 20 years for sure.
Yeah. If you're really good at it, you've got a great little business, and now that franchise fee goes straight to your bottom line. Right? You can realize that money instantly, which is kind of nice. Okay, great. So that last slide, we talked a little bit of aligning or what you're looking for in your ability, but now we want to see, how do I really align that? So we work with an example going, okay, I've got strong customer service skills, I'm a good organizer, pretty decent leadership, but reporting, I'm not good at reporting. I dislike it. I don't want to do it. It takes too much time, and I will put it off, right? And I have absolutely zero ideas how to market my business, right? I might have a Facebook page, TikTok, I don't know, right? But I obviously have no clue about that, right? So you've established those things. You know that you like being in the quick service industry because it's got high growth rates to it. It's still continuing to increase. They've been able to make it through the pandemic because they're already built for takeout. You've got all those components to go with it. You're like, okay, that's great. And plus there's lots of categories to look at. There's lots of options in the QSR area. So then you take your strengths and your weaknesses and you start looking at what the different franchises are asking of you to do. And you kind of look at, okay, do they have an automated back office system? So everything for the POS goes directly to that office, and all I have to do is just do the cash report and do the deposits and verify that the credit card is tying out and make sure those happen. And then I just look at the reports and make sure my ratios are in place. That might be a decent franchise to look at because it meets your ability. On the other hand, just like I was using before, if they go, no, you're doing all your own reporting, you're running your P&L, you're doing your own data entry, you're doing inventory every night, and you're like, oh man, that's a lot of work, but it makes great money. You have to ask yourself, is that money really worth it? Is that worth my time doing something every night that I don't like? And that's what you're looking for. I mean, that's kind of an example, I think the one I started with a bill collecting agency and you don't like conflict is probably a little bit better example because it's a little more straightforward. But again, you're looking at what are my real strengths, and they're in layers, right? It's not just superficial stuff. You want to dig to really think about it and see what's going on.
Frank, a question which will lead to another question. Do any franchises ever offer human resource support? Do you know?
That is a really good question. They'll have operation manuals and they'll have training manuals and they'll have that stuff. But most of the time, you're the one still doing, filling out the W-2, getting the I-9 set up, doing that reporting, right? They might have a system where, you punch into the POS system and the clock is run all through that. That's the most common system these days. But the initial setup, the actual doing the signing them on is still up to the owner.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked that is thinking about franchise fees, when it takes, like in your example where you have the back office doing accounting for franchise, takes time, that gives you time back as a franchise owner. And also if you don't want to do that sort of work, you don't have to hire somebody to do it. So does that come into play, you think, when you're looking for a franchisor, that they're essentially providing help to you in almost man hours, on a man hours level?
Unless you hire it for yourself, right? Like if I have a big enough company, I can hire my own HR person for that department. Yeah, that would make sense, but I haven't seen the franchises I've been looking at and working with. They don't have an HR department for the individual franchisor, right? They do, however, if there's a complaint from an employee, they can take it to the franchisor and say, hey, this owner is like not paying us overtime or something like that. And that can come back around. So, there is going to be checks and balances inside that. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? I'm kind of thinking I only answered half of it.
Yeah, well, I think my question was more towards, I used HR as an example because that's a huge service I would want to, help with if I were something like a franchise. But it's also relating to, these are actually services that are provided. So like, and you're talking about, you're doing books for you. That's a service they're providing. That's man hours. You don't have to waste of your time, which goes back to your bottom line. And also, you don't have to waste any of your staff's time, which goes back to your bottom line, right? So that almost makes the franchise fee seem a little bit more explainable to a franchise owner, right? Saying like, well, this, in a way, I would be paying this payroll if this franchise didn't offer that. So therefore, it kind of justifies the franchise fee a little bit more.
Sorry, froze just slightly there. So I think I caught most of that. So if we're looking...
Yeah, so sorry, I just want to throw in an analogy, following up on what JC is saying. I'm just thinking, owning a franchise business versus owning your own business. It's almost like the franchise business, you already have somebody laid out the foundation for you. But for your own business, you have to start from the foundation, right? So you have to build out everything from ground up, including the foundation. But for a franchise business, it's almost like they already laid out the plan. They have the rough structure, like, this is how your house will look like, right? You just build the ground up, above grade construction, right? You don't have to worry about the below ground construction. It's already there. And you probably don't even have a chance to modify that. It's already designed, right?
Right.
But versus your own, you can start from the designing, I want two levels of basement or whatever, right? You can do that. So you're following somebody else's blueprint, in doing a franchise business. But you have your own blueprint if you own your own business. So I think the HR part is somewhere above the ground. You know, you probably make your own decision on that part. Yeah, because I've been the franchise owner now for about a year, so that's my personal, you know, take on this. I think you make your own decision, but however, of course, each franchise is a little different, as Brian mentioned earlier. You know, I think some of them probably have a more detailed blueprint than others. So then, in that case, you really follow step by step. You know what the like I think McDonald's probably is really a good example. McDonald's, I would think they probably have more guidelines on how to hire people and how to treat your employees. You know, what's the hourly rate, all that kind of stuff. But versus, you know, Sunbelt, use it as another example. I think Sunbelt has much more flexibility left for the franchisee, you know, themselves.
Yeah,
so that's my take.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. You know, I think kind of one of the big takeaways I'm hearing in the comments that go with it, though, whether you've got a high level of written guidance going, okay, here are the steps at every single step from when, you know, the first minute the new employee walks in, training, every little piece is laid out, but still that's the science, that's the foundation for it. But the art of how that's done is still left up to the actual franchise owner. You know, it's like how they put their little personality on that training while still following those guidelines. And I guess like some institutions like we're using McDonald's, they're very like, this is exactly, follow this exactly, don't mess with it, it works, right? And it's how you can get a teenager to make a burger the same every time. Where here at Sunbelt, it's like, met these guidelines, and how do you want to say, you know, how do you put your personality on that to make it all work? Right, that's what I'm hearing you say on that, which I think is yes. Yeah, and I don't, obviously, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different franchises. I do not know them all. I know the ones that I've worked with, and I know what I've seen in those different arenas, and I've seen how that compares to being your own business owner and doing it. And then as my own business owner, trust me, there are many times it's like, man, I wish I just had a template. Here it is, instead of having to make it up. Right? Because like JC, you were saying, now that's more time out of my day. I've got to come up with a new thing, right? An HR law changed, right? Franchisor is going to send it to you. Okay, here's what we're doing now. Here it is, ta-da, ready to go. Independent, you're like, oh man, what's that law and what are they really trying to say? Because that's not English, I think. And you're going to interpret it and then incorporate it into your staff. So I mean, that is, if you're French, if you like a franchise and you like those, you like, personally, someone say, hey, this is the best way to do it, I'm down, right? I think that's really, it's highly supportive.
So basically, take away.
Sometimes you just don't have the time to figure it out. Yeah. Does that answer those questions? I mean, thanks for those inputs. Those are good.
Great.
Really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Next slide.
I can done it outside. Okay. So moving forward, we've kind of like meandered around a little bit, but that's how this stuff works. It's never a direct path. You want to narrow down your list of franchises that you like, right? But don't be overly critical. Come up with your parameters. So I'm going to see X on the top line. I want Y on the bottom line. I kind of know I like this area, and just see what's there. See what perks your interest, right? Don't be too detail oriented in your first couple of passes. And you do want to do it as passes. Okay, I got a list of 100 franchises. First pass, I'll wipe 50 out. Okay, that's not bad. Let's look a little bit deeper. Knock another 25 out. Okay, now I'm down to 25. Okay, this is looking good. Knock 12 out. Okay, now I'm looking at 8 to 12 franchises I'm really interested in, right? And you want to think of it as a direct elimination, right? But don't be afraid to go back to one of the ones you eliminated after you looked at one of the ones you're interested in and go, hey, that other one was pretty good. Let me go back and look. You want to have flexibility in your own analysis. All right. We hit on looking at the ratios of the numbers earlier in the talk. Again, I can't stress that enough. One of the CPAs that I worked with for the first several years of my corporation was really big on this. He's like, Brian, the numbers are great. What do the ratios say? What do the percentages say? And you want to talk with your CPA with that, because most of these guys are versed this way. You know, they understand, especially get someone who understands your business to an extent. That's really important. Don't get to someone because they're like, well, it doesn't cost as much. It's going to really help you as a business owner that they understand what type of business you have, so that they know those numbers are looking good, right? And help alert you that one of those ratios might be off as you're operating. Like, that labor's starting to slip. You're almost at 40%. What's going on down there, right? And then go dig, right? Because that's one way to steer a business. So after looking at those ratios, they all make sense. I kind of truncated slightly into ownership, but on the front side, what do the numbers look like? Ask to see re-P&Ls, not just what's on the brochure, right? Those projections. You want to see the real thing. You would say, this market area, right? We have another unit down south that's in a similar market. This is the numbers that you're doing. Here's their P&L. Here's their balance sheet, right? See what it's really doing. And if that are apple to apple or close to apple, then you can go, okay, this makes sense. This way I can see doable. Similar market, similar layout, similar size, similar rent, the whole bit. Now, you're going to match those abilities with that of the franchisor is requesting and requiring to run their business, right? What their operational standards are, what their expectations are, right? Again, this is for you. You want to be happy in that business. You want to have success in that business. You want to make the best with the money you're investing and your time into that business. This is, take your time with it. Don't take forever. You got to make a decision. But you really want to know, yeah, this feels right. This looks right. I'm comfortable doing this stuff. Here's a real important point. It's not going to match up 100%, right? You are just not going to find the perfect match, right? Know that. You're going to find that there's going to be a couple pieces in there that are, maybe. Be okay with them, because there is not that perfect match, right? You're going to get close. You want to get as close as you can within reason. If there's 100 points and there's 4, 5, maybe 6 points that aren't great or perfect, but the rest are, right? Figure it out. Because if you keep searching, again, analysis paralysis, you're not going to ever pull the trigger to buy it, right? And again, you're spending more time. I mean, I've hit this a couple of times, so I'll hit it again. You want to be open-minded about these franchises. There might be one that you weren't originally interested in, but it's got the best match. Go check it out. What do you have to lose? You haven't spent any money, put a little bit of time in, and go, okay, this will really work. And the same's got to be for the franchisor. They're looking at you going, are you a good match for us? Because it is a relationship. And it's just like a marriage, except, well, no, there's licensing and all that involved too, right? You're in it together, right? You want to know you work well together, right? You can't stress that enough. And as you go to the last point in that slide, it's important to be satisfied so they can realize the fruits of your labor, right? Because realizing the fruits of your labor, but in an unsatisfied way, is just an act in frustration, right? Take it, been there, right? Because there were several points in my business that I experienced this. I see it with the owners who are selling right now, right? They got the fruits of their labor, they got a great business, but they are not satisfied anymore. They're burnt out, they're tired, they've hit relationship change, staffing changes. You know, hiring the generation now is a little bit different than it was 20 years ago, for sure. It's a different dynamic, it's a different expectation, right? So be aware, have your eyes open and going forward, right? That's a great recommendation to go forward with.
Yeah, you know, that's a great point too, is to not really go into franchise just because it's the franchise you like. Like for instance, I love American barbell gyms. I don't like 24-hour fitness because I just don't like it, right? But if I want to become a gym owner and I say I really want to own an American barbell gym because that's the brand I love, right? But I find out that I have to go knocking door to door to do sales, and that's not something I'm willing to do. But 24-hour fitness or Bally's or whatever other gyms are out there don't do that. Or as a matter of fact, they do marketing for you, like they pay for TV commercials, things like that. I would be more inclined to go towards those franchises because I would be more successful because my abilities would match that better than say American Barbell, where my ability to go door to door is just not something I can do in habit, right? So, so in the end, keeping that open mind and saying, well, I love the fitness industry. That's originally what I wanted to do, and I'll be more successful with these franchises than the one that I originally thought I was going to go with. So that's a very good point, Ryan, putting your ability even before your first choice of a franchisor.
Yeah. That's the whole idea behind this.
Right. So yeah, I have a quick comment is that I think what Brian, well, Brian is going to have his recap. Really quick comment is I think what Brian, discussed, a lot of those questions apply to, any investor in general when you want to start your own business. But to choose a franchise just adds another layer of thinking. So you have to think, is this franchise going to provide benefits to you? Or is it going to take away your own character or your own capability, right? Or limit you, right? So I think that's the extra layer you need to think about.
Does it enhance the abilities you have, not take away from them?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Helen, right? Because it is, we all want to need and be needed, right? And we want to be able to put our personality into the business because it's a business. How did I phrase this? A business is just a business, right? People make the business.
Right.
It's not the furniture, it's not the fixtures, it's not the organization, it's not the plan, people make the business, right? And so part of that dynamic in figuring out your ability meeting the needs and the alignment and aligning with the franchise, you're also aligning with the people, right? You could have alignment with the franchise, you could have the ability to be in that alignment, but the people in there, you're like, dude, they're nuts. What is going on here, right? You might, that's a layer that's probably, I would have to say probably more important. It's like, how do you get along with the people in there, right? And I see some franchises where it's not pretty, right?
That's
and I've
true.
seen others, and I've seen others where it's like a family. It's like night and day. You're like, wow, that's really supportive. They really do help each other out, right? And others, it's like dog eat dog, right? There's one little piece in here that I don't remember seeing, and I don't know if I hit on it right. I'm looking at the franchise. They might have in it in there like, okay, you have this territory, you have this space, no one else of our franchise can go in there. But to take that QSR model and you go into sub sandwiches, you might drop in a Subway or a Quinzo's or whatever, and not to say that Mr. Pickles ain't gonna put in next door, right? So there is that other component in there. You're not always 100% protected, all right? From other franchisors, yes, or franchisees who have the similar shop, but other pieces, you just don't know, right? Very few companies have been able to successfully make that work. Starbucks, right? They can say, hey, we're going to put in a Starbucks and you're going to make this kind of money and you're right. It's going to be great. And you're going to have no other coffee shops within X feet of us at all, ever. Right? And they do it because people want that that brand in their door because they know it's going to bring people to that area. So they agree to it. So there are things like that, or like you can't have coffee. I experienced this actually with one of my bakeries, right? We couldn't even serve espresso because there was a Starbucks a block away. And we were told by Starbucks how that worked. We're like, oh. Of course, I'm an independent business owner. I put it in anyways, but this is because like I'm like, you don't get to tell me exactly what I get to do, but I mean that's just, again, that's a personality trait. That's something you as owners need to look at, right? That one kind of bit me in the butt a little bit, but that's something you want to realize in yourself, especially when you're looking at franchises. Do you have that attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just from personal experience, you know, a little story about one little tidbit I went through. But here's the big takeaways. And we already hit on them, but I want to like just hit the
Right. Before you get into takeaways, we do have about 8 minutes. So I do want to encourage the audience. There's a Q&A button on your Zoom menu. If you have any questions that you want to ask Brian specifically, you can ask him there and we'll make sure that they get read and answered. But with that, Brian, please take it away.
Am I going to see those show up on my screen, or are they going to come to you, JC?
You'll see them, but I'll probably read them to you anyway.
Okay. I want to make sure because I'm like, is stuff going to pop up on my computer? Okay, so key takeaways. Excuse me. You want to find a business sector that you like, right? And like you're excited about it, right? You can't stop talking about it. You want to identify your personal abilities, likes and dislikes, and you want to really be honest with yourself, right? That is a truly sit down, take a couple days, really dig, really go look at this thing, look at you. What do I like? What do I don't like? Ask people. Yeah, I really like doing this. And they're going to go, you complain every time you do that. You sure you like that? You want to be truly reflective and transparent at the same time, right? Reflect on yourself and be transparent. That's what I'm getting at. And then look, are my abilities really in line with what the franchisor's requirements and expectations are? And be honest with them. You're going to be talking to these people. You're going to say, hey, I really like doing this. Is this something that you have? Great. Hey, I don't like doing this. Is that something you need from me? Right? And then listen to the answer. And that'll help you make that decision. And then you're going to decide sometimes, am I okay with that anyways? Because that's going to come into play also. Am I okay with that piece? I don't like it, but am I okay with it doing it anyways? Or can I hire it? Find a solution. That's what part of your job is. When these things come together, your probability of success is going to hit its zenith. It'll be at its maximum. And that's what we all want going into business. We want our success. People want our success. A franchisor wants your success, right? Is that what we're looking for, right? And sometimes write that out. What does success look like to you personally? And see if that also falls into alignment with the franchisor and yourself. How good are you with that? What does it look like? Can I reach that success definition with this franchise? Right?
Excellent.
That's all. I mean, we can go a long ways on this, but I think there's only so long the Zulu can take in listening and stuff, right?
Yeah, great point.
Casey, you got anything for me? Other than being frozen? Oh, there we are.
Yep. All right.
My connection keeps showing up odd. Okay.
Well, that concludes our webinar. Helen, Brian, any final comments before we wrap up the webinar?
Well, I think Brian gave us a really good thoughts to take away. Before you become a business owner, go through the questions Brian brought up. That's going to really help you to make the right decision. and the due diligence process. A lot of times people are shy away from talking to other people, what they want to do next. But that's very important. You talk to other business owners, find out, what they have been through, what mistakes they have done, right? Especially mistakes. I think a lot of times you only see the bright side, the successful side of the story. Oftentimes we don't know how many times they failed and how many, errors they've made to become to today, the situation today, right? So I think those are really good points that Brian brought up. How to own a franchise or just how to become a business owner. It's an important step. So we're here to help you, right? And Brian's here to help, especially, for those people who are looking at the community-related business. Brian is really the expert on that. So you guys are welcome to contact us and Brian.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said one thing in there, and I thought about it because I've been a business owner, done all that. Sometimes, if you're a current business owner, you might not have done this exercise, and it might be something worth doing, right? Especially if you find you're burning out in your business. This could be good to go back and just reflect on yourself for a minute and see if you're aligned with your business, and if you aren't, what do you want to change, and if so, what?
With that, we got to wrap up, folks. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us today. Brian, fantastic presentation. Thanks for all the knowledge there that I hadn't thought about a lot of the things you talked about. And so we're just happy to have everybody here. And Brian, thanks again for this great presentation. We hope to see everybody at the next webinar that talk about this. If you have joined us, you will receive a link to the recording of this video, and you'll receive a PDF copy of the PowerPoint presentation. See you at the next webinar.